Ah, that's bizarre. Very strange. Yes, sir. What? I'm done with that. I was saying, well, did you get done? No, I just gave up. He gave up. He surrendered. He surrendered. Hey there, guy.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
We got 3 new bulbs, put the sign out there.
All right. Good deal. Good deal.
And we're gonna get.
Hello, my friend. How are you? Where'd you guys go yesterday? Your bike was here all day.
I know.
Where'd you hail off to?
The Chiricahua National Monument.
Oh, fun. Oh, you went up there to see Cochise' face?
I did.
Yeah.
Did
we
you see
did.
Cochise' head?
And we found
Balanced rock.
Balanced rock.
We
Yeah.
found a quail on a rock or something.
I
He comes in, or grouse. He comes in and says,
Grouse.
"Oh, there's a grouse on a
Right,
rock."
yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
thinking,
it's a
grouse.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm thinking real grouse, but we don't have grouse up there. What?
Yeah, I think there are in the Chiricahua.
Yeah, I mean, there's quail.
Yeah, but no, I think there are. You know, it's like turkeys. They were turkeys. They were gone.
Yeah.
I mean, they were there originally. That's what Chiricahua means.
Okay.
Chiricahua means wild turkey
Oh,
Huh.
really?
in Apache. Yeah.
I learned something. I learned some Apache
Who's
today.
the guy who disappeared?
So anyway, they were there, and then they got all hunted out, and they were gone, and then they kind of showed up again, and nobody knows exactly from where, but you know,
Yeah.
somebody brought some, and same with grouse or whatever, prairie hens or whatever you call them.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were there, and then they're gone, then they're back. So yeah.
Yeah.
see.
Anyway, it turned out to be a rock. It looks like a grouse.
Ah, okay.
Top of a rock, balanced on top of a rock.
What's this?
The inside.
Oh, yes,
that's
yes,
the
you
new-
did.
That's
That's the
one.
new. Oh, okay. Well, that looks a lot better than the old one.
Does.
Alrighty, we got new papers today. I'm moving on. There was only a couple paragraphs left, and there wasn't anything real earth-shattering in there, so I thought might as well moving on up. Keep on going. You betcha. You here? Somewhere? Somewhere. All righty. So, again, we are a little past halfway in the ministry of Jesus, not necessarily in the material. The 3 what's called synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, which follow pretty much the same stories, even though they're rearranged in time or chronology or order, have more material before Passover, before the last Passover, before Holy Week, and than they do after. John has more material after Palm Sunday or after Holy Week than before. So at least as far as material, recounting events and stuff like that. So the last, well, from 12, 13 chapters, John, all the way to the end, all about the Holy Week and stuff like that. Anyway, so material-wise, we're a little past half point. Not quite chronological, but close enough. So anyway, we're gonna look in Matthew. There's numerous places we could look from as far as this goes. But Matthew, I picked Matthew because it's the first one. So the first couple of points there, on the page 19, top of the page there, first withdrawal from Herod's territory and return. That's just a kind of, not necessarily a quick trip, but Jesus, the return of the 12, retirement beyond the Sea of Galilee, which beyond, when you hear the word beyond in the sea or beyond the Jordan, we're talking about going east. So beyond does not mean out in the Mediterranean someplace. When you hear the word beyond, that is their way of saying the opposite direction, east, going over, across, okay? The eastern shore of Sea of Galilee was thinly settled, made for a good place for Jesus and the disciples to rest. When Jesus heard about John's death, he withdrew himself so that he could not be put up as the leader of a revolt. So Jesus does this numerous times. You remember the event where he goes to Lebanon and there cures the woman's daughter who is possessed by a demon, and they have the whole discussion about crumbs from the table and dogs and all that kind of stuff. Kind of remember that? Okay, well, that was a time when Jesus said, I'm just going to take myself out of the picture. So he does that numerous times. Sometimes he goes north into Lebanon. Sometimes he goes east of the Sea of Galilee, and other times he goes east of the Jordan. That's not a really good map, is it? No, let's use this map. Okay, yeah. So Tyre and Sidon up in here, he goes up in here, and then over here on the other side of the Sea of Galilee, okay, and down here in what's called Perea. These are the kind of the three places, plus the mountain ranges in Israel. Goes up on mountain peaks and stuff. Those are the places that he goes when he wants to get away from it all. Okay, and basically what he wants to do is he wants to remove himself from people's view and from the opportunity of people to go grab him, surround him, whatever, put him on their shoulders, and say, here's our, political leader, here's our king kind of thing. And so, and sometimes he also does the same thing when he crosses the Sea of Galilee back and forth. Sometimes he leaves people on one shore and crosses to the other shore so that they cannot, acclaim him as a king or something, that he doesn't need that at this particular point in his ministry.
It'd be like going to the church college.
Yeah, right. There you go. Yeah. So we're going to pick it up. We're going to pick it up then in Matthew chapter 14, verse 13. We're going to spend, I think, pretty much the next couple of sessions, it looks like, in Matthew 14. Yeah. And before we go over to John. So we'll be finishing off Matthew 14 today and maybe next time. Depends on how far we get. So let's look at the first couple of verses. When Jesus heard about John, that is now, this is John the Baptizer, and Jesus hears that John has been executed. John has been beheaded. All right. He withdrew from there in a boat to a secluded place by himself, and when the people heard this, they followed him on foot. Okay. So he's near Capernaum. Okay, he's near Capernaum, which is over here, and he hears about John, and so he crosses over. So he crosses over to this sparsely settled place on the east side of the Sea of Galilee. When he went ashore, he saw a large crowd and felt compassion for them and healed their sick. Here is another example of the gospel writers simply digesting or shrinking, whatever, however you want to put it, summarizing a whole lot of things. So Jesus goes, does some teaching, preaching, whatever, and also does a whole bunch of healing. This is why we have no idea how many people Jesus really healed. In some cases, the apostles talk about multitudes coming to him, and he's spending all day and all night doing nothing but laying on hands or healing people, speaking healing to them, whatever. None of that, very few of that, if any, is recorded. And these happen periodically throughout his ministry. So aside from the miracles that we know, all right, raising Jairus' daughter, centurion's servant, this kind of stuff, there are thousands, tens of thousands maybe, of people who were healed of leprosy or demon possession or blindness or lameness or deafness or whatever, okay? Thousands, tens of thousands that are not recorded anywhere. Verse 5, yeah.
I heard that he went to be alone because of his cousin being beheaded. Like he wanted to just get away from the crowd.
The Bible doesn't say that. The Bible makes it sound as though he was afraid that John's followers would add to his followers, and the two of them, two groups together, would try to make him the head of a revolt, a rebellion of some kind, or that John's followers would come and get him and take him to where John was imprisoned to try to, raise him from the dead or something. And that's what it sounds like a little bit more. Now, what you say is true. He did like to get away by himself. That he did. But those are not considered to be the same as these long-term withdrawals for weeks or months at a time. So sometimes you're right. He would go up for a weekend, go up for 2 or 3 days, and not even take the disciples with him. Matter of fact, he would tell the disciples, "Stay here. I'm going to go up and pray. You stay here. I'll be back in, a couple days, whatever." So yeah, he did do that. Yeah. When it was evening, the disciples came to him and said, "This place is desolate, and the hour is already late. So send the crowd away that they may go into the villages and buy food for themselves." Now, that's really a stupid statement. This shows how dumb these guys can be. And, there's no question Peter, James, and John, being experienced fishermen and having more than one boat, they were businessmen, okay? They were successful. They're not stupid. But this is a stupid comment, okay? So it's evening, dusk, or getting towards dusk, getting towards sunset. So 5, 6 o'clock in the evening, and they say, there's no town around here. There's no people with food stalls, okay? There's no fast food joints or anything. So send the people away. Well, they're hours and hours and hours, if not more, away from any town, okay? So why would you tell Jesus, send them away, when you know that they can't get anywhere to find something to eat before it gets pitch black, in which case they can't hardly move at all. Okay? They didn't come prepared. They didn't come with their sack lunches. They didn't come with their dinners. They didn't come with torches. They didn't come prepared. Jesus took off for the other shore. They said, "Well, let's go catch up to him." So they went around, so there they were. This is ridiculous. It amazes me how dumb these guys can be, but whatever. Jesus said to them, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." I love that. I love that. Okay? You can't fix a problem. You can fix a problem. He had already told them. Remember, he had already sent them out, and he had already told them, "Hey, you can raise the dead. You can heal the sick. You can cast out demons. You can do all this kind of stuff. You fix it. They got a problem, you can deal with it." No, they're like, "Oh, no, we can't do that," right? They said to him, "We have only here 5 loaves and 2 fish." So somebody, it's always the story is always really nice. Some little boy comes up and, "Well, here's my lunch. Here's what I have." I don't know if that was it. Maybe it was among them, that's all they had. Now, it would be dried fish, and it would be pita bread type loaves, right? Which in those days, probably yay big around, probably about the yay thick. 2 of those, but yeah, 5 loaves, 5 of those, okay, and 2 fish. And the fish from the Sea of Galilee, maybe this big if you're lucky, and it'll be dried, okay? So gutted and then left out into the sun to dry, okay? So fish jerky. Hey, and Jesus said, "Bring them here to me." Ordering the people to sit down on the grass, he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up toward heaven, he blessed the food, and breaking the loaves, he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the crowds. And they all ate and were satisfied. I don't know if, fish jerky and tortillas is your kind of meal, but it was their kind of meal, obviously, because they were happy with it. They were satisfied. The word here, satisfied, is the word for, we would use probably a better word, we would say satiated. Satiated, In other words, they were full so they couldn't eat another bite. Okay, so not just satisfied, but full up. I can't put away another morsel. I can't put away another crumb. Okay, and picked up the disciples picked up what was left over of the broken pieces, 12 full basket full. And baskets here is, what do you want to say? Bushel. Okay. Well, I have never been good at what they call solid measurements or whatever, pecks and bushels, and I've never been good at all that kind of stuff. But think of a bushel, okay, pretty good size bushel. So 12 of those, which is a lot more than they started out with. Plus they fed all those people, and there were about 5,000 men who ate. And then notice the word, besides women and children. So they always call this feeding of the 5,000. That's dumb. Okay. Yes, 5,000 were fed, but it was a lot more than that. So the average size of a family in those days is, like 7 or 8. Okay. Now, granted, I'm not saying that everybody was brought along, but for every child that was left with a babysitter or whatever, you've got aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, and whatever. All right. So the men, okay, in Israel in those days, okay, a man, when the Jews counted people, okay, a man was a male between 20 and 50. Okay. Life expectancy in those days was about 50, give or take. But there were plenty of older people. Okay. We know that from various Bible stories. So and teenagers could certainly make the trip. Maybe not 1 or 2 year olds, so it would be pretty tough, although I'm sure there were some of those there. So when you've got an average family size of 7 or 8 in that period of history, and you've got men between 20 and 50, you've got 5,000 of those. It wouldn't be correct to say every single one of them had a wife along or had 6 children along. But my goodness, just an average size group from 5,000 men, counting in people over 50, counting in people under 20, counting in all the women, counting in whatever children, teenagers, whatever old people stuff, you've got at least 20,000 people, give or take. At least. It should always be, huh?
I said, if not 30.
Well, it should always be referred to as the feeding of the 20,000, I think, in my opinion, but whatever. Translators do what they like to. Bible people do what they like to do. All right, let's stop there for a minute and go over the notes. So, thinking about this, the miracle marks the height of Jesus' popularity and may account for the fact that it is the only miracle. Please note that. It is the only miracle of Christ recorded by all 4 of the gospel writers, unless you want to include the resurrection, but that's kind of special off to its side. But other than that, it's the only one. So, the feeding of the 4,000 or the raising of Lazarus or, whatever, that's only in one gospel. Some are another gospel, this and that. And that. But this is the only one that's in all 4. And so in most classes, when we start talking about the life of Christ, this is the centerpiece. This is the height of his popularity. This is about, in a certain way of looking at it, this is about the midway point in his ministry. Okay? Everything has built up to this point, and everything from here goes downhill to his death. Okay? From here, he starts to lose popularity. From here, he starts to lose followers. From here, more and more of his opponents get more and more powerful and try more and more to kill him. And so this is the mountaintop, if you will, of Jesus' life on earth. This is the pinnacle when he feeds the 5,000. Everything builds up to that point, and from that point, everything goes down to Good Friday. Okay? The people followed Jesus and the disciples across the lake. Jesus was not upset at the multitude, but instead showed compassion on them by healing the sick. You know, if it had been me, I'd have said, "Excuse me, what are you doing? I know why I'm here, and I know what I'm doing. What are you doing? You haven't brought so much as a chair or a radio to listen to or whatever. Come on. You haven't brought so much as a cracker. What's the matter with you people? You know, you're fools." He didn't say that. He feels sorry for them. And he's healing the sick. In the late afternoon, the disciples realized the multitude has no way of being fed, and they urged Jesus to dismiss them so they might go to nearby villages and acquire food. Nearby villages? You're talking hours and hours and hours. Eh? And these are tiny little villages, and you're not going to find any, there's no McDonald's there. Okay? There's nothing there. So it's just you're out of your mind here. Jesus rejects the disciples' decision and directs the disciples to feed the multitude. I still love that. Okay, you feed them. And could they have fed them? Yes, of course they could, because he had given them power over demons, and he had given them power over diseases, and certainly he gave them power over hunger. For whatever reason, they didn't think about it. The disciples were not as perceptive as they thought they were. They should have known what to do. Despite their constant companionship with Jesus and their witness of his mighty works, it didn't occur to them to use the power of God to feed the people from a small boil's meager lunch. Again, they could have done that. Or, at the very least, they could have said, "Hey, Jesus, we need one of your miracles." They didn't even do that. The only solution that occurred to them was have these people walk 10 miles in the middle of the night to get some food. And this, again, is after 2 years spending time with Jesus. Talk about dumb.
And I agree with you, because
I don't know why. I don't know why. Again, these cannot be stupid people. Okay? And wait a minute. These are also the same people who are constantly badgering Jesus about now is the time to come into your kingdom, take over. I mean, they thought he had the power to take over and beat the Romans. Why didn't they think he had the power to feed these people? I mean, it doesn't connect. Yeah.
It looks as though it was all political to them until he died.
Yeah, well, that very much so. Yeah.
It was all political.
Well, if not all political, certainly the majority of their thinking was that direction. All right. You asked me the question, why do they do that? And this is not the only time. I mean, think about when Jesus is asleep in the boat and there's a storm. And again, that's more than a year into his ministry, and after many miracles.
And after he calls that,
yes.
You would think they'd all
Yeah.
zip it and say,
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Or they see him walking on the water, right?
Yeah.
Why don't they just say, well, obviously he's in control of this, so why should we worry, right? Yeah.
When did this happen? 2,000 years ago?
Yeah.
Why do you give them credit for deductive reasoning that we had that took us centuries to get there?
Well, again, I say, but they're not dumb.
Well, apparently they are.
Apparently they are.
So I mean, to call them dumb, to me, because I'm thinking that they walked in bare feet.
Yeah.
They're really not mental dynamos to begin with. They're fishermen. They're very manual. And so I don't look at them as a person of today that can think.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
They they are being led by Christ the Lord,
Yeah.
and to them, they're already in shock.
Oh, I suppose, yeah, I guess, yeah.
So you gotta give them some credit. because We always look back then and go, well, why did they do this? Well, we're in 2026.
Yeah, and as I was going to say, I don't know. I don't get it. One of my professors once said that the devil was working overtime on these guys all the time and keeping them in doubt, or keeping them like Joanne said, keeping their faith kind of hampered, hamstrung, and perhaps that's the best answer. Is that as much as they were with Jesus, Son of God, they also had devil working at them overtime.
When Jesus turned to Peter.
Right, yeah. Get behind me, Satan. Yeah, exactly.
Excuse me, Peter.
Yeah.
Satan is trying to use you.
Right.
I'm going to tell him to get away with it.
Yeah.
Or even when he asked them, who do you say that I am?
Right.
And they really didn't, nobody said
Yeah.
you're the Son of God.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, well, you're Jesus, you're the Son of God.
Yeah.
We know that now, he's the Son
Yeah.
of God.
And I think it
But
almost.
at their time, it was like, what, you're Mary's son, and
Yeah,
you're a great
right.
prophet,
Yeah.
Well,
Well, even if they had already come to the conclusion, okay, you're the Messiah, the Jewish perception or the Jewish theology of the Messiah by that time was totally messed up. It was totally messed up.
they didn't have.
And so, if they're sitting in synagogue class, 10, 11, 12 years old in synagogue class, the rabbi's teaching them, and he's going through the prophecies in the Old Testament, he's telling them that this is going to be another King David, the Messiah. He's telling them that this Messiah is going to beat the Romans and give Israel back their sovereignty. Yeah, and make them the biggest nation in the world. And all. That's what the rabbi's teaching them in Hebrew school, or catechism
And
class.
when Peter mouthed it and said it, when you read it, it almost sounds like he stumbled into it.
Well, what does
It was
Jesus
like,
tell him?
well, where else do we go?
What else did Jesus tell him? He said, you did not even think of this on your own. The Father gave you this information. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's true. Bruce has a point that these guys have.
When the Holy Spirit came after Jesus,
Then
then
much better.
you get
Yes.
John writing the
Right.
beginning of his book.
Right.
In the beginning.
Right.
was the
Which is a deeply theological. This guy. But of course, he's writing at the end of his life. He's lived 90 years by that time, so he's got some wisdom. Huh?
Yeah.
So not like us old guys, but whatever. We're working on it. Despite their constant commitment, Jesus takes control of the situation, has the 5 loaves and 2 fish brought to him. From Mark 6 and Luke 9, those are the other two others of the accounts, we learned that the multitude was told to prepare for supper. Jesus had them sit down in groups, which is kind of interesting. Okay, why did he do that? To make it easier to serve. Now, why do I point that out? I point that out because think about manna and quail in the Old Testament. How did that come to the people? Yeah, it came down from the ground or from the sky. The manna fell on the ground. The quail came in and settled on the ground and just sat there and waited to be picked up. Right? So could Jesus have done that with the 5,000? Of course. He could have had fish and bread, or for that matter, lobster and filet mignon, just appear in their hands. Couldn't he? He could do that. Beyond that, he could fill their stomachs. Right? He could just make their hunger go away if he wanted to. Right? Okay? There's all kinds of things he could have done, but he didn't. It's kind of interesting that he uses a procedure. Okay? He has the disciples, he breaks up the fish and the bread into obviously 12 portions, or more, depending on how many disciples were there used at the time. But let's just say 12. Okay, he breaks them up into 12 portions. Okay, and gives every disciple some pieces of bread and some pieces of fish. All right. You know, how do you ever imagine this miracle taking place? I've always seen it as, you know, they have bowls, let's say, they bowls, and so they put whatever portion Jesus gives them, you know, 5 little pieces of fish, and breaking off certain pieces of bread, puts them in a couple of bowls, and I see the disciples going around with these bowls and reaching into the bowl, you know, and passing out this food to these people, right? That's the way I see it. And every time they reach their hand in, there's more in there. That's the way I see it. It's kind of like, remember the woman with the pot of oil and or jar of oil and flour. Remember that? And the Bible says every time she went in to get some, there was some there, no matter how much time went by. You know, she kept cooking food, but every time she reached into the thing of flour, it was full again, or not full again, but you know, enough. That's kind of how I see this. And I see these guys going around with these bowls, and they're not, you know, looking necessarily in there. They're just reaching in and pulling out stuff, and people are taking it, and okay, fine.
I picture it different.
How do you picture it?
So they've got the fish, broken fish.
Yeah.
like you say there, but they're not taking it out. With a crowd of 5,000, broken into, say, 12 groups.
Uh-huh.
And so he goes to the group, and they're like, I know, he's got one bowl, and they're reaching in, you know.
Oh, the people are reaching in again. Okay.
I mean, they're kind of smaller groups.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Not everybody.
Yeah.
And they're reaching in, you know, and pulling it out, and it's like,
Yeah,
and it just keeps coming out. and-
Yeah.
It's like a horn of plenty.
Like
A horn of plenty, yeah,
coming
yeah.
out. But
Well, and think of another thing here. How long would this take? 20,000 people. Okay. Or okay, you're just giving the food to the head of the household. So you're giving the food to one of the 5,000 guys. And whoever the head of the household is, he's doling it out to his wife, or if his wife's not there, one of his kids, or if his kid's not there, his father or mother, or you know, over 50, let's say, and whatever. Let's just say that. But still, think about 5,000 people.
But does the Bible tell you at that moment everybody ate and was satisfied?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't say right then and there.
No. But that's what I'm saying. This must have been a process. This must have taken quite a while for the 12 guys.
Could've taken hours.
Oh, longer than that, I think. For 12 guys to walk around. Picture, what's 5,000 people look like?
I'm trying to think how many at Thanksgiving at the VFW, you know, like a dozen turkeys or 20 turkeys, and they've got potatoes and stuff.
Do they feed
But
Did they feed 5,000?
The hall only holds a few hundred.
A few hundred, right.
Even if you get picnic table outside, another 100.
Oh, people come and go.
And there's so 5,000.
I mean, what's 5,000 look like? What's 5,000 look like?
There's 20,000 people here this stuff.
Close to 30,
30,000.
but that's including the fort.
So you figure the whole town here.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Major baseball stadium at capacity.
Well, beyond that, I would say if you've ever been to, let's see, what's close? Keno Stadium, I don't think it holds 5,000. I think probably 3,500 maybe. I don't know about, what's that one by the big park? The old one where the White Sox used to play. What the heck? Corbett. So that doesn't hold 5,000, does it?
Only held 700.
So, okay. I don't know. Okay, well, Snapdragon Stadium in San Diego just took the place of Jack Murphy Stadium. Jack Murphy Stadium held about 50,000. Snapdragon holds about 7,000. And that's standing room only. So I think there's 5,600 seats or something like that. That's where they're going to play some soccer for the Olympics. I don't know of another example around in Arizona. I think the minor league ballparks up in Phoenix, I think most of those are, you know, between 6,000 and 7,000 maybe at most. But anyway, so again, when you think of the logistics of this, the time it took for those guys to make their way around to 5,000 people. The area for people to sit down in groups for 20,000 people. Well, yeah, and not only that, but this is going to take a couple hours. It's dark by the time you get to the ones in the back. So it's really kind of a fascinating miracle. I've heard a number of studies and a number of sermons on it over the years, and I don't know anybody that really does it justice. I don't think.
I know the United Church theology. He was good, but I think almost
What everybody shared.
every
Everybody shared, yeah. Okay. Every person ate their fill. Again, every person ate to the point that they could not eat anymore. That's the point. That's the meaning of the word here. Okay. 12 baskets of leftovers were gathered. The seating arrangement allowed for an accurate count, including women and children. It's likely that between 15 and 20,000 people were present. Again, Dave says could be 30. I agree. It could certainly be that. From John 6, we learn that Jesus used this miracle to teach concerning him and his gospel as the bread of life. And we'll spend some time on that in another one of our classes. But all miracles have this as their main purpose. The purpose of the miracles is not just to heal people. If that were the case, if Jesus came to heal people, then he would have healed everybody. If Jesus came to get rid of all leprosy, leprosy would have been abolished. If Jesus came to get rid of all blind people, there would be no blind people left. He didn't do it. That's not the purpose for those miracles. The purpose of the miracles is to point to him as the Messiah, as the Savior, as the Redeemer, and so on and so forth. In other words, the miracles were only in support of the gospel. That's it, nothing else. The people desired to make him king. In John 6:15, Jesus knew this, and to avoid this, he withdrew himself up into the mountains. And we know that from other gospel writers. So again, that's Matthew's account. You can read the other accounts I've listed there, Mark 6, Luke 9, and John 6. You can see those other ones if you want. Read those. If you have questions on it after that, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, we're moving on. We're not going to spend much time on that anymore. We'll come back to the John 6 thing about the bread of life later. Anything else before we move on?
Are we going to get into, because he does it later, he says, weren't you listening about in 16:9, I think? Where was it? Do you not yet understand or remember the 5 loaves?
Oh, uh-huh.
Yeah, and why? So there was a significance of that, right?
Right.
And he gets into the 7 loaves and the 4,000. How many large baskets full you picked up?
Right.
How is it that you do not understand that I did not speak to you concerning bread, but be aware of the leaven of the Pharisees? Now, I know that whole thing wasn't just to teach him about the Pharisees.
No.
But he had them. Why don't you learn from what I did?
Well, because this goes to the whole bread of life thing again. Okay, and so he the long discourse in John 6 over the bread of life. And remember, this is also the point where people, they cannot stand what he said, and so they move. They remove themselves from him. And he turns and he says to the 12, he says, you're going to go away too. And that's when Peter says, you have the words of life. Where else can we go? Okay. But so that whole discourse after the feeding of the 5,000, that's what he's referring to later on in Matthew and also later in the other Gospels when he talks about the leaven of the Pharisees. So the leaven of the Pharisees is not leaven in the sense of sin necessarily, but the term leaven is used in that sense in the spreading danger. Okay? And legalism the legalism of the Pharisees, work righteousness, that is always a danger for believers. Okay, always. All right. And as well, and it's a trap for unbelievers. It keeps unbelievers from faith, actually. That's the idea that they have to work their way to heaven, and that it's not by grace through faith, but rather by their works. That's actually detrimental to the gospel. And so that's the leaven of the Pharisees. The leaven, whenever you hear Jesus say leaven of the Pharisees, that's what he's talking about. He's talking about work righteousness or legalism, basically. That's what he's talking about. Let's read on a little bit. We'll read down to 27, maybe even 38, maybe even 33, we'll see. Immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side, where he sent the crowds away. After he had sent the crowds away, he went up on a mountain. So he sends the disciples back across the sea, back across the lake. And then he takes off up into the hills. And when it was evening, he was there alone. But the boat was already a long distance from the land, battled by the waves, for the wind was contrary. And the long distance there, the Greek says stadia, or stadia, depends on how you want to pronounce it. The little note at the bottom of your Bibles talks about 600 feet. Think of 2 football fields. Now, if you think of 2 football fields, if you're looking at 2 back-to-back, one after the other, would you consider that a long ways away? Yeah.
Well, many stadiums.
Well, I certainly wouldn't want to swim that,
No.
especially in a storm.
Yeah. So you could double that or triple that. Okay. I know when I go out in my kayak, I go out. Usually I keep within 100, 200 yards of the shore. But every once in a while, I like just to take off, like I'm going to Japan, right? And I get to the point where I can barely see the shore. That's as far as I go. I don't want to get so far that I can't see the shore, because I can pick out some landmarks, and so I know kind of where I'm going back to, because I don't have a compass with me. And I don't know how far that is. I have no idea. I don't think it's a mile even. I've never tried to, measure it anyway. But it seems to me a long ways, especially when I get tired and I got to go all the way back. Yes, sir.
On the west coast of Florida, where I live, Crystal River,
Uh-huh.
it's 1 foot of depth for every mile you go out.
Oh, yeah?
Coral, and you can literally go, I forgot the name of the fish, those big fish in
Mhm.
Florida,
Mhm.
Very popular.
Oh, yeah. Pompano or something like that.
No, they're, but anyway, but you could literally go out there, but we threw a propeller, so we had to get into the water, and we were out there, we could just barely see the palm trees.
Oh, yeah.
So we're in the boat, switching out the propeller, we're out of the boat, switching the propeller, Keith and I, and Maggie and his wife, Kathy, are still on the pontoon boat, and all of a sudden we hear, Kathy go, "Oh, we caught a shark."
Ah!
And I'm working and I stop. There's a shark in this water.
Yeah.
So I get out of the boat right away, and it was a bonnethead shark. And it was
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
So they had me holding it, and the water was dripping on me, and they were all laughing. I said, "So what are you guys laughing at?" They go, "He's peeing on you."
Ah!
And I didn't even know that. But the point is that when you go out that far, I know how you must be, because you're in a little paddle thing.
Kayak, yeah, it's not even as big as these tables.
That seats like 20 people.
Oh, uh-huh.
And, we've got a refrigerator and a portable restroom and everything. But once you see those trees,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that tall,
Yeah.
and still you could probably walk back,
Yeah.
but no, you
Yeah.
gotta stay close to the shore.
Well, I know that the shelf goes out about 150 yards, 170 yards, and you can tell. It's always been cool to me that, I'm paddling out there and the water's green, blue. and I know from looking at seafloor maps that it goes real gentle like that, and then it goes poof, it drops off. And I've been out to that shelf when I've been scuba diving or snorkeling. I go out to that shelf sometimes, and it really is cool. You get down there, it's about 40 feet of water, 50 feet of water, whatever. You go down there, and when you're over the sand, you know, it's cool. And then you get out over that, and there you can't see the bottom.
I turned around when I thought I was gonna fall.
Yeah,
Kind of went right around.
it's really weird to look down and just see nothing, just absolutely nothing. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. All right. Anyway, so he goes out, and the boat was a long distance from the land and battered by the land. We're told that in the Sea of Galilee, the storms can come up like that. You don't get no warning at all. Okay. The winds come off of the desert. Okay. So the winds come off of the desert, and the Sea of Galilee is below sea level, right? So it's in a big bowl, and so the winds, there's hills around it, so the winds go up a little the hills and then down across the surface, and waves can get 10, 12 feet real quick, like within a few minutes. And the fishermen all know this. These guys know that. And that's why most of them don't go out in the middle of the lake. Most of them fish close to shore. So like when, you know, the sermon text, when Jesus is eating breakfast there, you know, making breakfast with fish and stuff, and he calls to them, and Peter's 100 yards off the shore. That's about as far as they get. And they, okay. So anyway.
Well, actually, that happens pretty much anyway.
Yeah, even.
Great lakes are-
Oh, those are horrible. Yeah. That's what caused big wrecks. Yeah. The wind was contrary, and in the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. So, fourth watch of the night. Again, your notes down there tell you 3 to 6 a.m. Okay. And some people criticize this because they say, well, what watch is this? The Roman watch would be second watch of the Roman watch. Well, yeah, but Matthew is writing for Hebrews. He's writing for Jews. John writing for Romans. And so John very often uses Roman terminology, especially when time and calendars are concerned. That's what John uses, is Roman terminology. Matthew, Mark, and Luke tend most of the time to use Jewish terminology. So fourth watch would see the Jews mark their watch as first watch when the sun goes down. So the next 3-4 hours, that's the first watch, second watch, third watch, fourth watch. Okay. Romans mark it from midnight. And so that's their first watch, is midnight to 2 or 3, whatever. When the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, "It is a ghost." And they cried out in fear. Now, this is interesting too. This brings us to a kind of fascinating topic. What did the Jews, we're talking Old Testament Jews still here, even in the time of Jesus, they're still Old Testament Jews, really. Even if they believe Jesus is the Messiah, they're still stuck in the Old Testament for the most part. What did Old Testament Jews believe about the afterlife? Well, we know that the Sadducees did not, that group of the Levites, priests, and whatever, we know that they did not believe in the resurrection. It's unclear, reading back sources of the time, it's unclear if they believed in a soul. It seems that some did and some did not. I think we can say that the Jews themselves, for the most part, aside from the Sadducees now, believed in the existence of a soul, an immortal soul. That is, something that lasts after your body is dead. Okay, I think that's a fair statement. It seems that a lot of Jews believed in the concept of soul sleep. That is, and it's still popular among some Christians too today. People believe that your soul basically goes to sleep and stays that way until Judgment Day. All right? I don't think the Bible teaches that. Matter of fact, I'm sure of it myself. But it is a debatable point among Bible scholars today still. It doesn't impinge on somebody's saving faith if they believe that or not. But I don't think the Bible supports that. I'm sure of it. It's clear that there is consciousness after death, because otherwise the whole discussion that Jesus has with the Lazarus and the poor, the rich man, and all that would be nonsense. Anyway, so there was a belief in soul sleep. There was a belief in resurrection, and there was also some belief in souls that were trapped, if you want to say that, in this dimension. Not usually visible, but still in this world. Now, that didn't seem to be believed by the rabbis, didn't be believed by the Pharisees, certainly not by the Sadducees or the scribes, but I think this may have been something that came into Jewish thinking through Greek philosophy. Remember that Alexander the Great, who was Macedonian but Greek. Macedonia was part of Greece in those days. Alexander the Great conquered Palestine, and it was Alexander and his generals who ruled over Palestine for a long time. And Greek philosophy, Greek thinking, Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, all that kind of stuff, Homer, all that, came into Palestine and into Israel during those years. And it became very popular among the people to learn Greek philosophy and Greek thinking, Greek theories of existence. Became very popular. That is how you ingratiated yourself to your Greek masters. You know, the Greeks were in charge. They were ruling the thing, Greek generals. Alexander was dead by now, but the Greek generals were ruling. And if you wanted to impress them, if you wanted to get in good with them, if you wanted to have a decent life, you learned Greek. And you learned Greek philosophy, and you learned Greek thinking, and you learned Greek philosophy and mathematics and all this kind of stuff. And that's how you kind of made it in. Well, and so this became a real big deal with them. I think that along with that, of course, in Greek mythology, there's a lot of ghosts. Okay, well, there's a lot of gods, of course, and there's a lot of semi-gods and demigods and pseudo-gods and all kinds of stuff. So I think the idea of ghosts is not an original Jewish idea. Right? I don't think so. There was one case, of course, with King Saul, bringing back Samuel. That is an interesting case for a bunch of reasons we don't have time to get into. But I don't think that was common in the time, in Jesus' time. I think it was more the Greek idea. All right. In any case, the disciples would be familiar with this concept. They would be familiar with the concept of a being or a soul that was somehow trapped in our world, if you will, and one now and then would become visible for some reason. So there's no reason that we should really think that this is bizarre or strange or weird any more than people today, talk about ghosts and, go to haunted places to intermingle with them and all things like this. Now, do ghosts exist? Yes and no. Ghosts exist in this form of demons. Okay? People, human souls, our souls, do not go anywhere but heaven or hell. They do not stick around. Okay? That's clearly taught in Scripture. Today you will be with me in paradise. You go to heaven. That's it. Okay? So souls don't stick around, right? If any kind of entity or being that looks ethereal or whatever and is mimicking what we think of as when we think of ghosts, that's a demon. Okay? That's a evil angel. That's one of Satan's angels. Okay? The same is true for UFOs, most of them. The same is true of all kinds of other weird phenomenon that's going on. The demons have amazing power. So there are no, the old story, song, joke, whatever, there ain't no such thing as ghosts. Okay? As far as that goes. Immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid." Peter said to him, "Lord," notice, at one minute, he's a ghost, but right away, he's Lord now again. So obviously, the ghost idea didn't stick around. "Lord, if it is," I love that. Don't you love that? "If it is you." Well, who do you think is speaking to you, Peter, you moron?
And if it's not him, and he says, yeah, walk on the water, you're going to do it?
Yeah, really. That's dumb. Yeah, "if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." This is another good question. I don't know where that idea comes from. Where does that idea come from? Where do you, if you see God walking on the water, right? Why do you think, oh, I can do that? Or you can make me do that? But I would say, why do you even want to do that? I mean, where'd that come from? Yeah.
Am I missing something here? Nothing happens unless it's through God and Christ allowing it to happen.
Right.
So they knew this was going to happen.
What?
So this is God's way of getting them to believe.
I-
Help me to come, let me walk on water. So that to me is through the divination of God. God and Jesus said, we're going to set this up for this, so they are participating in the strengthening of their belief.
Better yet, let's teach Peter a lesson.
All this is allowed by God.
Right, right.
These are not men with a strong brain trust.
You're not missing a thing, Bruce. Don't worry about it. You're not missing a thing. No. I can imagine Peter, being a fisherman his whole life. I can imagine Peter, sitting at the edge or standing at the edge of his boat, looking out over the sea and saying, "You know what? I really wish I could just walk out there." I can see that happening, right?
When it was glass.
Well, yeah, sure, yeah. Or it's like maybe you do once in a while. You're sitting down or out in the park or whatever, and you see a bird fly over, and you go, "Boy, that would be cool. I wish I could do that." All right. Yeah. If I was Peter, I would say, "Yeah, walking on water, small time. Have me fly. I want to fly. I want to fly." Right. But no, I don't know where it comes from, but it's a fascinating thing, And Jesus says, come on, hey, whatever floats your boat. Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came toward Jesus. That had to be pretty fascinating, right? He's standing on water, right? Hey, this is pretty cool, right? Yeah. And then notice it says, and seeing the wind. Seeing the wind. Well, you don't see wind. What are you seeing? Yeah, you're seeing the effect of the wind. All right. So that's really what he's worried about. He's not worried about the wind. The wind isn't going to drown him. He's worried about the sea is still tossing and turning, right? And he's worried about going down. Right? He became frightened and began to sink. He cried out, "Lord." Let me ask another question. Let's see if you got an answer for this. How do you begin to sink? How do you begin to sink? If you're standing on the edge of a swimming pool, right? and you do this, how long does it take you to go down? Yeah. So how do you begin to sink?
I think
As his faith evaporated?
Well, as the fear took over his face.
Ah, okay.
it says he took his eyes off.
Oh, right, yeah, right, of the Lord.
He
Good.
took his eyes off.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's a big lesson in that, isn't it? About us keeping our eyes.
Right.
So he took his eyes off and he looked at his situation and said, "This situation's bigger than you."
Yeah. I too get the idea that this was a gradual sinking, which in itself is kind of a miracle, right? There's also a big question, did Peter know how to swim? Most people in his day did not know how to swim, but when you go back to the text, sermon text, you remember that he got out of the boat, put his coat on, and swam to the shore. So Peter may have been one of those few fishermen in those days who actually knew how to swim. It always amazes me to this day. You ever notice that? There's these refugee boats on the Mediterranean from Africa to Italy, and they flounder or go under or whatever, and it says, and the people could not swim. To this, in this day and age. Now I realize, they're Muslims, they're Arabs, and they usually don't mess with water.
They're also coming from deserts, so they don't even have lakes or
Yeah.
rivers.
Yeah, no lakes or rivers. Yeah, but yeah, even the Muslims who live on the seashore, like in Lebanon, okay, or in Palestine or in Gaza, they never swim, never, and they don't know how. It's the weirdest thing. They had this pier.
If you watch them on a beach, they walk out.
They get into their ankles about maybe.
You'll never see them as their knees.
Yeah. They don't get. I noticed that the other day, last month when I was in San Diego, wife and I were walking, and we were walking on Pacific Beach area, and I noticed there were 2 or 3 women in their hijabs, head to toe, the whole thing, including just a little slit for their eyes. And I noticed they were very gingerly picking up and walking into their ankles, But not all of them, only a couple of them. The other ones, whenever the waves, whenever the water would get close, they back up, just like my dog. Okay? Yeah. So anyway, Peter, he sank slowly, which was kind of, like I said, that's a miracle in itself. The fact that he doesn't just go plop down straight down. Anyway, okay, so immediately, Jesus stretched out his hand and took hold of him and said, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" And I'm sure Peter didn't have an answer. I don't know. I just did. And again, we can feel sympathy for Peter. How many of us have walked on water? 0. Okay, so I'm sure if we did, that we might be a little scared. And might fear that it's not going to work. He got into the boat and the wind stopped. Now, interestingly enough, in this case, Jesus does not speak to the wind or the storm or whatever. Do you ever wonder why he did that? In the first case, remember the storm on the sea, and he calms the storm, Again, they were going back and forth across the Sea of Galilee. Why does he What would it mean that he spoke? We may have talked about this at the time. I don't remember. What would it mean that he speaks to the wind anyway? Is the wind a thing? No, it's not. The wind doesn't have any consciousness.
Well, if you dip your nose into the book of Enoch, you'll see there's angels in the snow.
Yeah.
Angels of the
Well, again, okay, good point. That's kind of what I was leaning to. God certainly is in control of the weather, but God can allow demons to do things with the weather. So who was God really speaking, or who is Jesus really speaking to when he commanded the wind and waves to cease? Demons. Thank you. Yes, right. Or along the lines where we've been talking about, this was a setup, okay? Good angels perhaps too, or even his father. Hey, Dad, turn it off, okay?
Because it's a teaching moment.
Right, right. So, and anyway, he's not talking to the wind. He's not talking to the waves. He's talking to either demons or angels or his father, whichever. Okay, yeah. This time he doesn't do that. He doesn't say anything. See, as soon as he gets into the boat, everything stops, which is also interesting. Yeah.
He's controlling it then.
Right. Yeah. And he doesn't have the, maybe he did say something and Matthew didn't record it. And the Holy Spirit said, nah, we already did that. Don't need to do that again. Okay. And they crossed over and came to the land of Gennesaret. And when the men of that place recognized him, they sent word into all the surrounding district and brought him to him all those who were sick, and they implored him, and they might touch the fringe of his cloak, as many touched it and were cured. Here again, another one of those things where multitudes are cured in any case. Woo! We're past time.
We
All right.
missed verse 33.
Huh?
We missed verse 33.
Did we miss? And those who were in the boat, oh yeah, those who were in the boat worshiped him, saying, "You are certainly God's son." Yeah. So again, that's the point, isn't it? Yeah. Let's see. So we need to talk about the note stuff. Jesus retires to pray. Need to go back to that, and in the notes, and then after we discuss all that, we'll pick it up at, I think 15, or are we going to 6? No, we're going to 6. Yeah. We're going to John 6. That'll be next. And then we get to talk all about the bread of life and all that good stuff. So that's a really good discussion. All right. See you all tomorrow. Have yourself a rip snorting good Saturday. Yeah.
1980,